Something was standing at my front door at 4:47 in the afternoon. Not at night. Not in a storm. In plain daylight, while the neighbors were mowing their lawns and kids were riding bikes down the street. I didn't hear a knock. I didn't hear a bell. I just felt something pull my eyes to the door. And when I looked through that small oval glass, I saw her. A little girl, completely still, staring straight back at me. My name is Dennis Hale. I'm a 38-year-old civil engineer, and I live alone in a rented house in a small town called Kittner's Mill in rural Pennsylvania. It's not a dramatic place. There are no old cemeteries nearby, no local ghost stories, no strange history that anyone talks about. It's the kind of town where the most exciting thing that happens is a fender bender outside the gas station. I moved there in early March for a 2-year project. The house was plain. Beige walls, low ceilings, and a yard that needed mowing. I liked it because it was quiet, and I needed quiet. I'm not a superstitious man. I don't believe in things I can't calculate. The first time I noticed something wrong was about 3 weeks after I moved in. I was eating lunch at my kitchen table on a Wednesday afternoon. The radio was on low, one of those easy listening stations. Then, the music stopped, not faded. Stopped. Like someone pressed pause on the universe. I looked up from my food, and the whole house felt different. Dense. Like the air had weight. I remember thinking the power might have cut out, but the clock on the microwave was still running. I shook it off. I told myself I was tired. But you're here because you want to hear about the girl. So let me tell you about her. Before I do, if this is your first time on Unblinking, welcome. Hit that like button and subscribe. We tell stories here that don't let you sleep easily, and you won't want to miss what comes next. She looked about 9 years old. Straight black hair cut blunt at her chin. She was wearing a yellow rain jacket with the hood down, even though it wasn't raining. She was standing about 2 feet from my door, arms loose at her sides, and she was looking directly at the glass. Not at the door, at the glass, like she knew exactly where my eyes would be. I opened the door. Of course I did. She was a child. It was a sunny afternoon, and she was standing on my porch. I asked her if she was okay. She didn't answer. I asked if she was lost. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she said, very quietly, "I need to use your phone." Her voice was flat, not scared, not shy. Flat, like she was reading from a card. I let her in. I handed her my cell phone. She held it for a moment, then looked up at me and said, "It won't work here." I checked it myself. Full bars. I showed her. She just stared at the screen, then set the phone down on my kitchen table and walked to the window. She stood there, looking out at the backyard. She didn't say anything else. I asked her where she lived. She pointed toward the tree line at the far end of my backyard. There are woods back there, maybe 40 yards past the fence. Dense, old growth. The kind of trees that block all the sunlight even in summer. I told her I'd walk her home. She turned from the window and looked at me. She said, "You can't go in there." That was all. Not I don't live there. "No, that's not my home." She said I couldn't go in there. I stepped outside to check if anyone was looking for her. Maybe a parent calling down the street. The neighborhood was normal. People moving around. A dog barking 2 houses over. I came back inside less than 30 seconds later. She was gone. The front door was closed. I hadn't heard it open. I went through the whole house. Every room, every closet, under the bed, behind the couch. Nothing. I checked the back door. Locked from the inside. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, just breathing. I tried to find a rational answer. Maybe she slipped past me. Maybe I was so focused on looking outside that she walked right by. Maybe. But my gut told me something different. That night, I sat on my couch and didn't turn the lights off until 2 a.m. And even then, I left the hallway light on. I told myself I wasn't scared. I was just thinking. Engineers think. That's what we do. 3 days passed. Nothing. I started to relax. I even laughed at myself a little. I was a grown man who'd been unsettled by a quiet child on a sunny afternoon. I went back to work. I ate normal meals. I slept fine. But on Saturday morning, around 11 a.m., I was making coffee, and I looked out the kitchen window into the backyard. She was standing at my fence, same yellow jacket, same flat expression, same stillness. She wasn't doing anything, just standing there, arms at her sides, looking at the back of my house. I grabbed my phone to call someone, I don't even know who, and when I looked back up, she was closer. She hadn't walked. She was just closer. She was now standing at the edge of the grass, maybe 15 feet from the window. I didn't move. I don't know why, but every part of me said don't move. She stood there for about 4 minutes. I counted. Then she turned her head slowly to the right and looked at something I couldn't see. Something past the edge of my window frame. And she walked toward it. Just walked. Calmly. Deliberately. Out of my line of sight. I didn't follow. I called my coworker that afternoon. A guy named Marcus. I told him what happened. He laughed at first, then heard the tone in my voice and stopped. He offered to come over. I said no. I said I was fine. I wasn't fine, but I didn't know what I'd tell him. A little girl keeps appearing, and I'm frightened is not something men like me say out loud. The third time was different. It was a Tuesday evening, maybe 6:15 p.m., still light out. That golden, late afternoon light that usually feels warm. I was in my home office, reviewing blueprints, and I heard a sound I hadn't heard before in that house. It was coming from the hallway. A low, rhythmic sound, like something being dragged very slowly across hardwood. One slow pull, then a pause, then another. I opened my office door. The hallway was empty, but the sound didn't stop. It was coming from the far end of the hall, near the front door. I walked toward it. With every step, the sound got quieter. Not louder. Quieter, like whatever was making it was moving away from me, even though I was walking toward it. I reached the front door, and the sound stopped completely. I looked through the oval glass. She was there again. Same position, same jacket, same stare. But this time, her lips were moving. I couldn't hear anything, but I could read the shape of the words. She was saying the same thing, over and over. I watched for almost a minute before I understood what she was saying. She was saying, come outside. Not asking, repeating, like she'd been saying it for a long time. I stepped back from the door. My hand was shaking. Not from cold, not from age, from something older than both. I sat down on the floor right there in the entryway, and I stayed there for almost an hour. When I finally got up and looked again, she was gone. No footprints in the soft mud of my front walk. No marks. Nothing. I talked to my landlord the next morning. I asked if any children lived nearby, if anyone had reported a missing kid, and if there was anything unusual about the property before I rented it. He looked at me for a moment, then said the last tenant left early. He said the guy had broken his lease and forfeited his deposit without explanation. He said the man had lived there for about 6 weeks. He'd seemed completely normal until the day he just left. The landlord hadn't thought much of it. People leave leases early all the time. I asked if the previous tenant had mentioned anything. The landlord paused for a moment, then said the man had mentioned a child. He thought the neighbor's kid kept wandering into his yard. The landlord said he'd assumed it was just a minor nuisance and told him to talk to the neighbors himself. I talked to every neighbor within 4 houses in both directions. No one had a daughter. No one had a niece or a granddaughter visiting. No one had seen a girl in a yellow jacket. One older woman across the street, who'd lived there for 22 years, went very quiet when I described the girl. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said she'd seen a child near those woods twice over the years. She thought she was from a family that used to live on the other side of the tree line. She said that the family had moved away a long time ago. When I asked how long ago, she said, before you were born, maybe. I packed a bag that evening. I didn't break my lease. Not yet. I went and stayed at a motel in the next town over for a week, telling myself I just needed a break. When I came back, everything looked normal. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was moved, except for one thing. On my kitchen table, right where she had placed my phone during her first visit, there was a small wet ring on the wood, like something damp had sat there. A glass, maybe. Or a hand. The strange part wasn't the ring itself. The strange part was that it was still wet. After a full week, I stayed for 2 more months. I completed my project. I never saw her again, not after that 3rd visit. But the house felt different after that. The air never fully lost that dense feeling, that pressure that I noticed on the first day. I slept with the lights on. I stopped eating at the kitchen table. I used the back door instead of the front, even though it was less convenient. The last morning, when I put my last bucks in my car, I stood at the front door for a moment and looked down the street. Normal town. Normal morning. Birds in the trees. Someone's sprinkler is running, and I had this sudden feeling that something was watching me leave. Not angry. Not threatening. Just watching, waiting for the next one. Maybe stress played tricks on my mind, or maybe some places carry things we simply don't understand. But one thing I believe with certainty is this. Everything happens by the will of Allah. Nothing moves, nothing changes, and nothing touches our lives without His knowledge. Everything happens according to Allah's will. And maybe some questions are not meant to be answered. If this story made the back of your neck feel cold, you're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have opened that door? Would you have stayed 2 more months? Share this with someone who says they don't scare us. Let's find out if they mean it. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Unblinking is where the stories live that no one else is willing to tell. I drove out of Kitner's Mill on a bright Thursday morning with my windows up and my eyes on the road. I didn't look in the rearview mirror as I left. Not once. I told myself it was because there was nothing to see. But the truth is, I was afraid of what might be standing at the edge of those woods, watching me go, still wearing that yellow jacket. Still, completely still. Lips moving in a sentence I could almost read. Almost.